Verizon Wireless, have you checked out and seen our broadband cards? I always ask, what is that? As it should be. Any sort of entrepreneur and business owner, if you can afford something and if you see value that you're going to get more value than what you're paying, then do it.
Yeah. By asking the proper questions and the proper chain of questions and the right times and having the right tonality and the right body language and this and that and all these other components, that person eventually is able to convince themselves that your product is the right one. All right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. I'm your host, Vin, and today we're going to talk about some sales strategies because sales are the life force of your business. And if you don't make sales, you don't make money. Money is the blood of your business. If you don't have life force or blood, well, you're probably dead. So today we're going to talk about a few of our different strategies, how we go about creating sales, how we go about connecting with people, and ultimately how we've been able to grow our businesses, and hopefully it helps you grow yours. Shane, would you like to kick it off?
I like what you said about sales is the lifeblood. Sales is really the only thing you really need to figure out about business, because the rest, as far as the first thing, let's say, because the rest is going to come into fruition. But if you don't know how to sell your product or service, it's done. So I think that's the number one priority. Now, what I always recommend as far as starting something else is don't recreate the wheel. See what your competitors are already doing successfully, emulate that model, and make it better. That was the best piece of advice that I ever got when I started my marketing company, when I first started becoming an entrepreneur. And what it's going to do is it's going to save you time, because these people who are already doing it successfully, they have the process. So that would be step one. Now, the sales strategy, my biggest approach, and this changes, I think, as the years go on. I used to actually sell Verizon Wireless cell phones before phones were, I'm not going to say, popping, but before the technology even came into fruition. Like, I started cell phones when text messaging first came out in the boom, right? We're talking like 2006, 2007. This is where PDAs and Blackberries first started coming out. So that's, wow, I feel a little old just talking about that, which is crazy because that was not even 20 years ago when that stuff happened. Mind blowing where we're at with technology already within 20 years. Anyways, when I first started selling, I was a greeter at Verizon Wireless, right? Imagine like Walmart, welcome to Walmart. That was pretty much it. Except I was something special. I was only a greeter for 2 months, and I just graduated high school, and I needed a job. I wanted to be a sales rep, but I had to get some experience. So I was a greeter, and I sold these broadband cards. You remember broadband cards, Vin? You know what those are?
Broadband cards.
So they're little internet cards that you could take with you wherever you want, and you have internet for your laptops. So those were broadband cards. Remember, this is early back in the day. And every time somebody would come in and say, welcome to Verizon Wireless, have you checked out and seen our broadband cards? I always ask, what is that? So I'd send them over to broadband cards like, do you take your laptop? Do you work remote? Instead of jumping on somebody's Wi-Fi, imagine having your internet card to go with you wherever you want to. You don't have to worry about, somebody hacking in and using their Wi-Fi or wherever it may be. Sold a bunch of those, gave them off to sales reps, got promoted immediately, just by asking questions. I actually still do that to a degree, not so broadband cards, but utilizing those questions into my own sales pitch. So I've learned from very big gurus, as they've been called, and sales instructors, but it's all discovery. It's utilizing the people's pain points and what they want to sell them that. If you can figure that out, I assure you success at anything that you do. Because people buy what they want, what they need. And the only way to truly uncover that is by asking questions, especially when it comes to, let's say, coaching as far. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? How do you see yourself getting there? Are you okay with where you're at comfortably, financially, mentally, successfully, right? So if you paint the road by using what they're saying, and they're saying that stuff out loud, they're almost selling themselves. So when you get to that level of your customer selling themselves, convincing themselves, you don't need to do anything. That's the beauty and the art about sales that I truly feel that I haven't mastered because it changes and evolves every day. But I've definitely gotten to the point where I feel comfortable training and teaching my sales reps on how to use it, which they continue to utilize and sell for my businesses every day.
I think that there are a few key components. One thing that you said actually is you said people buy what they need. I disagree with that.
And one.
That's it. I think they buy what they want. And I think that people always buy what they want. And we say that we need it. But the thing is that when you understand people, you understand that everything we need is just based off of a value system. Like where people tell me, I need my job. It's like, why do you need your job? Why don't you just quit today? Why don't you just go be homeless in a box? Well, I don't want to be homeless in a box. So you're saying you don't like being homeless or boxes. It's like, so in that regard, you actually want to keep your job. You just don't currently like your job, right? So there's a difference. And I think getting people to understand differences like that starts to also shift and give them breakthroughs in moments that otherwise they wouldn't. Like that's something that I do a lot with my coaching, for instance. And I'll even do it sometimes on a call or a sales call because it's getting people to understand subtle nuances like that. It's like sometimes the things you're angry about or the things you hate or the things you don't like or the things you do want you can come to a different conclusion about. And if you could create a mind blowing experience for that person that you're talking to, you're actually more likely to get them on a sale or whatever the case might be, because every average person is going to go for the typical sales process or the typical sales pitch, right? Like starting off asking how your day is and things like that. It's like you don't care about their day. You know they don't. They know you don't. And so now you're starting already coming off as everybody else. I think in today's world, especially when it comes to selling your service, your product, or whatever it is, it's about learning how to differentiate yourself. And I feel like that's how I've been able to sustain in my coaching business is because I very clearly outlined how this is different and how it can support you. Funny enough, actually, Shane and I were talking is I had a call today with somebody who's interested in working with me. And he disclosed that he had talked to 5 other people and nobody pointed out what I pointed out in that one call. And mind you, those 5 other people were all people that were going to teach him about sales, selling, etc. But because I was able to hit on something different and everybody else was parroting the same thing, he's actually more inclined to work with me. And we have a follow-up call now where we're going to basically sign on him as a new client. So it's really, really interesting how if you could figure out how to become a problem finder and a problem solver instead of pushing your product or whatever the case is, and thinking more about the client and how you can get them through a moment of breakthrough, you can actually enhance your sales. And that's kind of what I look to do. Now, I do that over and over and over in my coaching process. But to get them to even get into the coaching process, we need to create a mini breakthrough in their sales call so that they could see why this is what they want and need. So that's a part of what I do.
I like that. I mean, beating your competition by 5 other sales coaches. First off, those sales coaches must have been terrible because,
Could it just be that I'm that great?
well, that's kind of where I'm getting to. Like, how would you consider yourself a sales coach and you can't sell your product to somebody who is actively searching for that solution?
Hmm.
They're bad. They're not good. And that's what it is. You couldn't close me on a call for something that I'm looking for. It's probably a good sign. It means you're not going to do. You did, which means that you're going to be able to help them.
Right. Well, and I think the funny thing is to the point, I targeted something different. Everybody's telling that guy, if we're using him as the example, which we could, everyone's telling him how the way he's going to make more money is by really understanding how he could talk differently to the prospects and he could get different sales, etc. And I, through asking questions, to Shane's point, got to the fact that his bigger issue isn't that he doesn't know how to do sales, it's that he has a mindset issue and he needs to actually do personal development and he needs to work on himself. And we could also teach him how to speak better, ask better questions, things like that. But that's not the core of the focus. The other sales coaches were all saying, oh, you need to work on X, Y, and Z. I'm like, that stuff, like we could work on, and it's a very small component. The 80% thing you need to work on is this mindset issue with the childhood issue that you have that's rearing up in your life right now, and that's where your sales process is actually stuck. And so because nobody else is able to pinpoint that, because everybody's so in love with their process, the other guys wanted to sell him their program, their course, because they believe that it works, and it works because X, Y, and Z, and they know it, and blah, 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 blah. But what they missed is what's actually wrong with that guy. And I think that that's a bigger problem, or a bigger component to today's sales world, is that everybody is just taking in like, hey, I have this product to sell, have this course to sell, tell everybody how this course is different and how it does this and how it does that. But they're not concerned with creating the experience. I created the experience for that guy on the call. That's why he said that I was better than the other 5 people, because they didn't create an experience. They were looking at, oh, this is your problem. Here's the solution. How do you even know that? Honestly, one of the best things that I learned, probably more recently from some sales trainings that I've been watching and taking, is like when somebody gets on and they're like, why is your product the best? Or why should I go with you? And then the first thing you say is, well, I'm not even entirely sure you should. I honestly really love that. I think that's one of the best ways to approach it, because that's a very truthful answer. When I first hop on a call with somebody, I don't know if I'm the right person. I will by the end of that call, but at the start, I don't know. I know my service can help. I know it helps a lot of people. I know I'm very good at what I do, but I'm not sure you're the right fit for my services, and vice versa. I don't know if I'm going to be the right fit for you. So let's explore it together. And that is best done through asking questions and trying to get to a space where you can really understand that person and their unique needs.
Well, Ben definitely puts an extra layer to the sales as far as the therapeutic and business coaching background, where I totally forgot about that for a split second. On let's take things back to your childhood. Let's really dig in deep and transition you and transform you into becoming this amazing salesperson in general. So Vin's kind of cheating. He's got the cheat code, the secret sauce to it.
That's funny that you say that, because I actually told the guy, I said, you know how I'm going to help you with sales? I was like, I'm going to teach you human psychology. I was like, whatever those other guys are going to teach you, I guarantee it ain't that.
Right. That's why you got the cheat code, man. So if you guys are looking to become better at, and to be honest, sales is something that's never going to go away. Sales is a skill set that even in a technology driven era that we are currently in, which is not going anywhere, sales is something that can never get replaced. People are always, that's a skill set which is also dying, which is crazy that people are just not used to, because it's so easy to go on Amazon and purchase whatever product you want. But as far as a service-based industry, it's always going to be there.
What if they do that? Have you seen Air AI?
Mm-mm.
Like Air AI is an AI service that will do phone calls and sales calls for you, for your company. They will represent the service or product you're selling. And it's literally an AI robot that listens to what the people say and then spit out ways to overcome objections.
Yeah, that's nuts. I still think, as far as the humanized touch to it, and people knowing that it's AI is also another thing too. But I still think the human touch to it, it's not going to go anywhere. Asking those types of questions and really figuring it out compared to just like what you're just saying, why you were different from those 5 other people. You can't automate something like that, right? Because it's
I
different for
mean,
every single call. I personally
didn't
think so.
didn't you and I get to the realization in the last podcast that they could potentially replace me as a therapist and or coach and with AI?
I still think that's nuts, but people that's going to get coaching from an AI probably shouldn't be getting coaching.
But I'm saying, if I could be replaced, why can't a sales guy be replaced? I think what
Well,
I do is a little more intricate.
yeah, but you could say that about anything, right? I think it's just having a human brain, which, can make the adjustments, providing that human touch, truly caring about the person, making it catered towards their custom solution. That's what we bring to the table comparing it to AI.
Hmm. It's true. It's true. And if we do give AI emotion, then we're going to be dealing with the Terminator.
Which you can't.
We can't
No,
yet.
you can't.
Yet.
Now, flipping burgers and doing stuff like that, sure. I know there's restaurants already existed in California where, AI robots have already started flipping burgers and deep frying French fries and stuff like that. Makes sense, right? Because the minimum wage in California is like $20 now for fast food workers.
Damn.
So
Same in New
makes sense.
York.
Same in New York.
Yeah. Same in New York.
Anyway,
It's really interesting though. So, I mean, before we go down another AI rabbit hole, because I feel like we just keep doing this,
I know.
I want to go
There's
back to
reasons
the sales stuff. Let's help the people listening.
why.
I think there's something to be said for really, really good questions. How many times have you, I don't know, Shane, maybe you've experienced this, or I feel like I have. Have you ever been on a sales call where somebody's like just talking about themselves, their product, how they're better, how they're different, giving you their story? Like it feels like they're the ones doing all the talking on the call that you're
Oh,
potentially going to be buying something from.
always.
Isn't that like an interesting thing? Like what goes through your mind when that happens? Because I think this is something that for our listeners, like avoid this. Don't talk a lot. You shouldn't. Like 80-20 rule. 20% of the time you're talking, 80% of the time listening. But
And
yeah, Shane, tell me.
well, that really goes into the approach that I'm talking about is asking questions and having the customer telling you what their needs are compared to the other way around where you're telling them, oh yeah, this is going to get you this and you're going to love this. And here's, all the stuff that you need. It's like, you don't know what I need. It's funny before I forgot what I was going to say. I'm an impulse buyer and I feel that for services and for products, if I like something, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to try it out. If you can convince me and sell me and that I'm going to get value in return, as it should be. Any sort of entrepreneur and business owner, if you can afford something and if you see value that you're going to get more value than what you're paying, then do it.
Yeah.
At least that's my take on it. Otherwise, what's going to happen? You're going to sit down, you're going to convince yourself on why you don't need this. And who does that help? Does that really help you?
Mm. I think a
Now,
lot of the. No, sorry, go ahead. I didn't know you had more.
no, I think that's the general bulk about me personally as an impulse buyer for products and services. There's been plenty of times where I have bought this service and it hasn't worked out. On the flip side, there's been great amount of times where I've bought something that has worked out tremendously. Products and services.
Mm.
My wife will say I buy too much snacks on Amazon, that I
I
don't
agree.
like or I don't end up eating. But hey, I had to try something. I'm the guy that goes into a restaurant that's going to try, different things on the menu the more times I go. I'm not going to get the same thing. Even if it was great, I got to try something new.
Yeah, no, I won't. If I like something, I'm just going to stick with it.
That's my wife. Absolutely.
Yep. Well, and I think it's interesting if we roll this back real quick, when you have people that are on the call and they're doing more talking than you, it's because they're probably honestly not confident in their own product. Like even though they might say they are, oh yeah, I am. If you're confident in your own product, then you shouldn't have to actually sell it, right? Like there's to some degree on a sales call, your product is supposed to sell itself because by asking the proper questions and the proper chain of questions and the right times and having the right tonality and the right body language and this and that and all these other components, that person eventually is able to convince themselves that your product is the right one. And the people that actually don't have the right product are usually the people that are going to take the harder sales stances. They're
Mm-hmm.
usually the people like, our product's the best, our product's the cheapest, this is the most efficient, and blah, 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 blah. And then they always hit you with, and I hate these things, man. I don't know who invented them, but whoever did needs to be punched in the face. The urgency bonus. I like working with dedicated people that want this thing as bad as I love to sell it. So if you do that, I'm going to drop the price immediately $6,000 because you're buying it right now. It's like, what? So your product was never 15,000. It was always 9,000. Like
Right.
that's so what? So if I don't buy it right now and I want it 3 months from now, I'm going to pay 15,000 for it. When you yourself just told me you're going to sell it to me for 9, I'll never do that. So you even decrease the likelihood of people who wouldn't buy it in that moment to ever come back. Because now in their mind, it's like, why am I going to pay $6,000 extra to buy this thing a month
Well,
later?
you're seeing something that's a major flaw that you're not pointing out.
Tell me.
So after this whole thing, and I tell my sales guys this too, which is why we don't offer discounts or anything like that. So you've built rapport, you've built discovery, you've built value, you've sold them on what they need. That's it. Focus on that. If I focus on selling you a discount, now what does this turn into? It turns into me selling you a price, right?
Right.
That's it. I lost everything that I just built with you, the trust, the rapport, the value, because I just offered you a discount. Right. So now your mind's on what? On 15,000 and 9,000. It's like, oh, why would I want your mind on this? Your mind needs to be on, oh, this VA is going to be doing this, and this for you. And what's that going to do for you? It's going to free up your time to spend more time with your family, to focus on the growth of the business. That's what matters. The value we just built. What's that worth to you?
Mm.
You tell
Yeah.
me, what's this worth to you? What's your time worth to you? What's your family? What's your business growth? That's what people need to focus on is the value.
Yeah.
You never discount anything. More importantly, you never say that at the end because that's all my mind's going to focus on now.
Yeah, it's true. And
Makes no sense.
it creates another issue too, because to your point, now that the whole thing is on the price, now you have what a lot of people might call buyer's remorse, because you felt so pressured into it because you wanted to save $6,000. You're more likely to ask for a refund on that buy because you bought it out of fear. And so when you attack someone's psychology like that, guess what? You have the call in the next day that they want the refund. And
Yeah.
now they're going to dispute it with you and they're going to demand their money back because you didn't create urgency, you created fear.
And
You
then guess what
created so
happens?
much fear.
What happens following that? What happens if I don't honor the refund? Now we have negative reviews. Now we have it's something that's going to affect the business long term, right? Because you sold a price, you sold fear.
I would say if you're gonna sell an urgency bonus, and I still hate those things,
No,
I
don't,
hate them. No,
don't,
there's something
don't
you
get
could do.
price.
There's something you could do. No, there's something you could do. I think this is the
I'm
proper
open.
way of doing an urgency bonus. I'm still not a fan of it, but for the people out there that want to try it, sell more value. Hey, listen, I'm really a fan of working with people that are super committed. Nothing will change with the price or anything like that. But if you were to buy today, I'll even throw in an extra coaching session or I'll throw in a this or a that. So don't focus on the price. Don't give discounts or change values. Just change the value, add more value into the package, maybe.
That's
That
not.
would be my only advice.
I personally don't think that's more value. I think what you first said, and that's why I can humbly disagree with you because
That's
of
fine.
what I currently do. If what you sell is the solution that they're looking for, what more value do you need? What's an additional coaching session going to be? It's going to be, okay, well, he's doing this. So now what do I look at? Now I look at the finances. Okay, it's a little bit more affordable since he's throwing in an extra stuff. I disagree. You're undercutting yourself. Since I started, and my team, who I know watches some of these videos here, how many times have I decreased the price in 5 years?
Hey,
Zero.
don't talk to them. Talk to me.
Zero. Zero. I've increased my prices 7 times. Go look at my reviews, the VA group. Go look at them. Look at my Glassdoor reviews, which is all my employees. Go look at my Google reviews. Go look at my 100 testimonial videos on my website because we bring value, bring quality that is unmatched at a big fat price that I will never discount, that I'll never cut. And if that's what you want, and you want quality, and you want top tier, you want the plumber to come in and fix the situation at the price and the peace of mind that you're going to have compared to the plumber that's the cheapest option that you're crossing your fingers hope's going to work. I love that analogy. Then great. But no, absolutely no. I never undercut my value. I never add more value, which is not adding more value. It's transitioning their mindset into price.
So if Shane can hear us little people
Oh
while he
gosh.
stands as high as he does atop his pedestal.
This has been
One
this way since day one, Vin.
one
Get out of here. When I was running
one
all sides of the company myself.
I get it. However, Mr. Alpha Potato, here's the biggest thing. Not everybody has that mindset. For some of you out there who are still trying to validate your offer and gain the confidence in your product and service, I would say one of the things you could do is a positive urgency bonus. Now, again, I think people like Shane who are extremely established and who have had a lot of confidence in their products and services, I agree. This does not apply to you. There are some people out there who are still trying to validate their offers. And I think that's who this message would be a little bit more for, because even myself, it helped me immensely to throw in more value when I was still trying to say, like, well, what would my service or product actually be worth? Like, what do people see value in? And sometimes it's tip the scales for me to
Fair
give
enough.
people a added value factor, or some things that I've done that have worked in my favor. For instance, because I'm extremely confident in my service, I like people to commit to a minimum of 3 months of working with me. And if you won't, then I don't want to work with you, because I believe that it does take 3 months to really start getting some great progress, because first month is usually exploratory. I need to learn about you, your business, your needs, etc. And then from there, it's more like action plans and action steps, etc. But what I do in that first month, in addition to it being exploratory, is usually moments of breakthroughs where I create so much clarity for people around what their true struggles or needs are, that all of a sudden it becomes a massive value prop in that first month. And one of the ways that I have sold people that have been on the fence is saying, listen, you have to commit to 3 months if you're going to work with me. But what I will do is I will give you an out after the first month if you don't see the value here, and all you pay for is the first month. And then after that, if you really don't like it, you could leave after that first month. Now, I know Shane heavily disagrees with this, and he's not wrong for it.
Well, let me talk
I've
about that a little bit. Let me
yeah,
talk
I've
about that.
I've I've seen it as something that is tip scales, because I know if I do that and they're on the fence of working with me, and I give them that opportunity of an out after a first month, it usually smooths it over so much that they take that. And the amount of people I've had drop out after the first month is zero. And I've offered that deal multiple times. So I think a part of understanding sales process too is knowing what could be great for you, what could your prospect potentially need too, because sometimes it is another level of like, maybe that person that wanted the out after the first month with me just didn't have the trust yet, and they were somebody who was hard to commit to something, or maybe been burned before, whatever the case. I like to be very flexible with my sales process, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that, for whoever's out there listening, understanding your sales process, understanding your prospects, and truly tailoring it to, I want to serve and support this person, might have it look a little different in each way you approach or sell. So and that's just me. That's what I do. That's my experience. So I'm not talking from courses or things I've learned. I'm talking from what has actually factually worked for me in my industry and my business. So this is just me.
I don't think you're wrong for what you're saying. There's different phases of mindset that you go through.
Mm,
If you follow our early episodes, we talk a little bit more about this. And you hear me say, and I still believe it, but it wasn't always like this. And that's where I want to dive into success driven versus financially driven. When you're first starting out your company, you're financially driven. Now, when we started the marketing company, my business partner and I, about a decade ago, we were financially driven. However, we wanted to see if what we were offering worked. So we actually will do this for free for the first month because we wanted to actually get some social proof. We wanted to see if
mm,
what we were talking about, what we were preaching was actually going to work. And saying after the first month, we'll talk about this and we'll see what the retainer is and we'll come to a suitable agreement after this. We want to see if it's going to work. So I think if you're starting out, absolutely there's fine in giving the house away because you need social proof. You need testimonials. You need a footprint to stand on. However, that mindset has to shift. It has to shift to the success of yourself internally and externally. Because if you do not ever shift, you will always be financially driven. You will always be chasing money. You will always be on the hook for that compared to success. When you transition your mindset to success, it's how can I give the best results to the client? How can I get the best results for my employees, for the company? And you're not caring about essentially the money aspect of it.
mm,
Now, which I feel like I've, made those adjustments with the VA group, the amount of clients that we take in is probably, 1 to 2% for all of our clients. We are such a high price point because of what we deliver, and we know what we deliver because we have the social proof, the reviews to back it up. So when it comes to that, your level of peace of mind, your level of clients, everything adjusts and changes, and you are now focusing on just improvements. And it's the best thing possible. So I really want to talk about how I've transitioned personally into financially into successfully, which helped by having, a business coach, therapists along the way, mental coaches. It helps getting into that mental clarity and making that transition. But I will agree with Vin that not even just in the beginning, that once you get to a comfortable place, you need to focus and transition your mindset from financially to successfully.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end the episode because I think we hit a lot of great stuff on the sales process. There's obviously so much more, and sales is pretty nuanced, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to understanding people. You don't need to have a specific service or product. Like, you can work in virtually any industry and you can know enough about the service or product. The reality is, you just need to be able to understand people, understand that they're looking for solutions, they're looking for ways to overcome their problems. And here's the best part about it: 99% of the time, they don't actually know what their problem is. They know they have a problem, but they don't know what it is. And if you could be the guy, like the example today of me outdoing the other 5 people, is because that guy came with a problem, but he didn't know what the real problem was. And being able to help people understand that is more valuable than any service or product you will push. So be in the business of people, and your stuff will virtually sell itself. Thanks for joining us again, everybody. We appreciate seeing you on the 1% podcast. Review, like, share, comment, send a message, tell us how much you love us or hate us, whatever it is. And join us next time. And we don't know what that topic is yet, but as always, we appreciate you. I'm Ben.
I'm Shane. See you guys.